Welcome, everyone in the United States, Canada, and around the world to another episode of It's a Wrap with Rap, the podcast of overcomers and useful information to better our daily life and mental well-being. I'm your host, Ron Rapaport. I would like to thank all our listeners, our viewers, and our sponsors and supporters for making the podcast such a success. The podcast may also be accessed through our website, itsawrapwithrap.com, where you can find all the episodes, previews of future episodes, and unique products and services offered from our sponsors, as well as the podcast Book Nook, which is showcasing many of the books our guests have authored that can be purchased on Amazon. My guest today is Kelly Tuttle. Kelly is a member of the Head Injury Survivors Club, as she describes it, due to another car pulling out in front of her as she was driving and causing a horrible crash. Kelly's traumatic brain injury, or we like to call that, abbreviate that TBI, marked the beginning of a new life and personal journey of self-discovery. Kelly is a neurology nurse practitioner. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Nursing from California State University, Fresno, and a Master's of Science degree in nursing from Gonzaga University. Kelly is a longtime martial arts student and has a second-degree black belt in Kempo Karate and a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and is an award-winning author of her book titled After the Crash, How to Keep Your Job, Stay in School, and Live a Life After a Brain Injury. Kelly is here with us to share her coping strategies and tools to help other brain injury survivors continue to work and study while they heal and educate us on the importance of being aware of head injuries so we can help ourselves and help others know what to do if that type of injury occurs in our lives. Welcome, Kelly, to the podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me. What a fantastic intro. Thank
Oh,
you.
well, thank you. You deserve it. And as we were talking off camera, I'm also a TBI survivor. So we'll get into a little bit of this and go back and forth. This is a very important topic considering it is estimated between 3.2 and 5.3 million people in the United States live with a disability caused by a traumatic brain injury. And those are statistics from the CDC, which is probably a low estimate because only those hospitalized are counted in those figures. Also, 2.8 million in the United States suffer a TBI yearly. So please tell our audience who you are and how you became involved in the specialty of traumatic brain injury.
Well, like you said, I'm Kelly Tuttle. I'm the author of After the Crash. And my story starts with the thunderous clap of metal and the shattering of glass. People running out of their homes to see what's going on and the distant sounds of sirens. And I was in a pretty bad car accident, but despite having some injuries, I thought I would shake it off and go back to life. I actually went to work the next day, and my colleagues who are also nurses noticed that there was something wrong, and they had me promise that I would see my general practitioner the next day. I saw my general practitioner. I left with a feeling that I would be better in 2 weeks. So I went back to life, and I worked really, really hard to work, be a mom, stay up on my responsibilities to the point of about 2 to 3 months after my car accident. I fell asleep at the wheel, and I was awoken by my car bouncing off the road, and was able to slam on my brakes and stop my car from striking a tree by about 12 inches. I then had a conversation with a colleague who was at the time a neurology nurse practitioner. I was a cardiology nurse practitioner. And she was curious to see how I was recovering after my concussion. And I explained all the symptoms I was still having. And then I mentioned, oh, yeah, and I fell asleep at the wheel. And she was like, what? And I said, yes.
That erased some red flags, Kelly. That's for
Well,
sure.
it didn't for my brain, because my brain said, well, we'll just take a nap halfway in between work and home on the side of the road, which I don't recommend. That
No.
is not safe. Please don't do that. But this is how my concussed brain was problem solving, trying to get me through day after day, you know. And so my colleague said, "Hey, you need to get a brain scan." I hadn't had one yet. "You should see a physical medicine and rehab doctor." And I was like, "What's that?" And she's like, "Oh, they used to be physiatrists in the past." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, okay." I did what she said. I met with the physical medicine rehab doctor. And after that, I started to get on the right road of recovery. I was taken off work for 3 months, was sent to speech therapy, physical therapy, neurotherapy, and started to slowly get better. And in the process of trying to get better and reading everything I could possibly find on brain injuries in the brain, I became passionate about neurology. And after a friend's encouragement that I'd make a great neurology nurse practitioner, I begged and pleaded and did everything I could to qualify for a training position. And 2 years after my car crash, I started a job as a neurology nurse practitioner. And I've been there ever since and been very happy.
Okay, so you said that the car crash was pretty horrible, right? I mean, was the car totaled, that type of thing? And
Yes.
did the EMS take you to the hospital?
Well, they wanted to, but I knew what happened to people who were in car accidents taken by the ambulance and stuck in an ER because I previously had been an emergency room nurse myself, and
Yeah,
I didn't want to do that. So I, you know,
yeah.
I declined, which hindsight, not a smart
Was
idea.
that
I
was
don't
that
recommend it.
right? Was that the concussion talking to you? Probably not. You just weren't thinking.
Probably, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, just, in shock from the car crash.
yeah.
Yeah,
Because they probably would have done at least a CT scan, I would assume, at the hospital just to see what's
right.
going on. And then, okay, so I wanted to ask you, what are some of the main obstacles for a TBI patient for keeping their job and those trying to stay in school and pursue their educational goals? What do they experience as an obstacle to do that?
That is a huge question, Ron. So I'll try to answer it the best I
Sure.
can. First of all, one of the obstacles is recognizing by their providers, their general practitioner, that they actually have a concussion.
Uh,
A lot of people will fall like you had, or be hit in the head, or be in a car accident. And a lot of the medical care they will get will focus on either their whiplash or say they fell and broke their arm, but nothing is, the brain's not considered in that accident. There isn't a lot of understanding about how people sustain concussions and the impact concussions can have on an individual person. And everyone's different. Some people, like fell, had a brain bleed. You're doing, pretty much okay.
yeah.
Me, 9 years ago, car accident. Now I have sound sensitivity, light sensitivity, difficulty in motivation, focus and concentration, and neurofatigue. And then somebody else could have problems with balance, difficulty with walking. So everybody's symptoms are different.
Okay.
So first they have to get diagnosed. Their symptoms need to be identified. Then they need to be given the tools to cope with those symptoms and the right therapies. And then they need to be able to implement those while they're at work and in school so they can continue to work and study while their brain is healing.
Okay. I was talking to Kelly offline, and I had a couple bad falls, and I did wind up in the hospital from an abrasion on my eyebrow, and then I had my lip was practically taken off from the fall, and I hit my head really hard. It was like somebody just punched me in the face, and it was really something. And they did a CT scan on me, and they said everything was okay. Well, just to let everybody know out there, they can do a CT scan and everything can look okay, but 4 or 5 months later, that's when I had my problems. And it was from probably a slow brain bleed. which they didn't pick up on a CT scan, right, Kelly? They needed to do an MRI. Well, I had my MRI 4 or 5 months later, and then I had to go the next day for that day for emergency surgery. They had to drain the blood off my brain, or else I wouldn't even be here talking to you. What they said,
Yeah.
you know?
Yes.
Yeah, they said I had to have it immediately. So a CT scan's fine, but I would get an MRI just for everybody out there. It doesn't take much to fall and hit your head, and you may not think it's a big deal, but it can be a big deal. So, with the obstacles you face, what new methods did you use to learn differently since you had like fatigue and all that? What new methods are out there?
Well, I used to learn by reading,
Uh-huh.
reading and taking notes, and then watching and then doing. And I loved reading. I used to read for hours when before my car accident. And then afterwards, I found I could only read for 5 or 10 minutes at a time.
Wow.
And then sometimes I didn't even remember what I read. So I had to highlight, take notes and so forth to try to remember. And so then what I found, and then before my car accident, I couldn't listen to something and learn. I had to read it. And then after my car accident, I was surprised to find out I could actually learn from
Mhm.
listening to audiobooks. And so that's how I switched my learning and absorption of information is to listen to audiobooks. And then I also utilized using YouTube videos. Fortunately, YouTube videos were around when I had
Yeah.
my car accident. And from there, YouTube videos, you get the audio, you get the video. They have closed captioning so you can read, you can pause to take notes. And so that's how I was able to start to relearn again. And as I pushed myself to learn and expand my reading tolerance, my cognitive stamina, I was able to do more. And I've just kind of added to that. So let me give you a picture. When my car accident happened, Ron, I
Mhm.
could not make coffee and toast. I would I would put the bread in the toaster, make my coffee, forget the bread, sit down, have my coffee, and wonder why am I hungry? And my and my husband's like, "Why is all this dry bread being left in the toaster?"
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
would lose my coffee mug, and there'd be coffee mugs all over the house. I have gone from not being able to make coffee and toast at the same time to writing a book to starting an online business. And that's
Wow.
just being small steps at a
Yeah.
time, just small steps.
So in the beginning, it was a lot of short-term memory loss.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
noticed that when I had my my fall, and then after the surgery, things start coming back, but things are really slow in the beginning. I'll tell you that.
Yes.
Now, is TBI a broad scope diagnosis? And if so, does it complicate things, in with the healthcare industry? The It's a Wrap with Rap podcast is so fortunate to have Australian author, artist, illustrator, happiness coach, and international speaker Andrew Matthews as a sponsor and supporter. Andrew's books, including Being Happy, Follow Your Heart, and Bouncing Back, have sold over 8 million copies in 48 languages in 70 countries. Happiness and success are made clear and simple in his writings. Andrew first gained international recognition when world champion golfer Nick Faldo told the world's press that Andrew's book, Being Happy, had helped him win the British Open, and more sporting champions began to read and recommend Andrew's books. Andrew has devoted his life and 12 books to the subject of happiness and has addressed over 1,000 corporations on 5 continents on attitude, enjoying work, and resilience. Andrew is popular with CEOs, surgeons, with teenagers, and even prisoners. His latest book, Bouncing Back: How You Rebound from Disappointment and Disaster, will guide the reader how to crush worry, build better habits, and think like happy people think. Bouncing back is about rebounding from failure, poverty, illness, loneliness, tragedy, grief, and discovering resilience you didn't know you even had. Andrew pinpoints 7 things that resilient people do that we can do too. Andrew shares 60 inspiring stories of people who were broke, shattered, defeated, and got back up to persevere. The book is lavishly illustrated with 90 of Andrew's much-loved cartoons. The book Bouncing Back, How You Rebound from Disappointment and Disaster is available from Amazon in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook formats. Information on the book will be listed in the podcast notes, insurance and all that stuff.
Ooh, very good question. So before TBI was considered an acute injury, you had it, you were supposed to get better and that's it. But now research is showing that no, that TBIs can lead to things like epilepsy, multiple TBIs can lead to Parkinson's, dementia, and dementia. So it isn't a one-time thing. It's kind of like a risk factor for neurodegenerative diseases such as Parkinson's and dementia, as high blood pressure and diabetes are a risk factor for heart attacks and stroke.
Right.
So just recently, I think it was a year ago, Medicare actually approved traumatic brain injury as a chronic disease. And that's huge
Yeah.
because that means that it's going to get down to the frontline healthcare providers that this one impact is not the end of the story and that this person needs to be monitored through a lifetime. So if you have a young child falls off their bike and strikes their head, they get better. Then in their 30s, they get in a car accident and they strike their head. But they get a little bit better, maybe some deficits. But as you get older, you really want to lower your risk of more neurological disabling issues, such as like stroke. So if you have all this in your background, these TBIs, the last thing you want is a stroke. So your doctor would want to monitor your risk factors for stroke because we don't want you ending up at 65 or later not being able to enjoy your retirement because now you have dementia or you have vascular dementia.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. We touched on this, but maybe you can just kind of expound on it. Explain to us what a CAT scan and an MRI can tell us and what it cannot tell us.
Right. So that's a really good question. So CT scans and MRIs are really good at showing bleeds, skull fractures, and tumors. But they don't, just because, say you fell, you hit your head,
Yeah.
and your CT scan and your MRI are normal. That doesn't mean you didn't have a concussion. The diagnosis of a concussion is based on history and symptoms.
Okay.
Because what symptoms are caused by what's going on at the cellular level in the brain between the neurons.
Right.
And our technology is not, at least in clinical practice, the technology is not there to be able to see down to the cellular level.
So we're not sophisticated. The technology is not sophisticated enough to tell that.
Yes. And I'm talking more people with mild traumatic brain injuries. Now, someone with a severe brain injury, MRIs can pick up severe axion shearing, diffuse shearing. And some people have died from that. And that's when the neurons are attached to little branches and those get torn and disconnected. Okay. And if there's enough of it, it can kill you. But if you have a mild concussion or even a moderate concussion, that's not gonna show up.
So it's possible, and I'm sure it's happening every day, where somebody has the concussion, they get an MRI or CT scan, everything shows up good. I'm sure they get released, they go home, and then they start having problems. So there's probably countless people walking around with problems that aren't being tended to. Is that correct?
Yes. It it's in fact, a large portion of our costs are a lot. I can't say the word today. Population in our prisons are traumatic brain injury survivors.
Really?
Yes. And so it's terrible, but you can have a concussion and then not know what's really going on unless someone identifies it for you, because it's hard for the person with the injured brain to monitor and or have a perception of what their actions are leading to or the consequences. And so it can, their behavior or their personality changes or their symptoms. You can develop depression and anxiety after a concussion, can manifest into loss of job
Yeah.
because of irritability or bursts of anger. You could lose your relationship, your marriage, your partnerships. Some people have sleep difficulty or, like I said, anxiety, depression. They might try to self treat with alcohol or drugs.
Right.
And you could see how this spirals and how we lose this person in our community.
Well, something just popped up in my head. Sometimes you turn on the news and somebody does something crazy, like they, you know, drive a car into a crowd or, something on that order. And then they start interviewing everybody, their neighbors and their friends, and they go, I don't know. I mean, the guy was normal every time, I saw him. So it's possible that that could be a cause of something like that.
It could be. And my brain injury has taught me to have more understanding and compassion for others. So when I do see somebody with a behavioral issue or acting out
Yeah.
in society, that's what I often think. I'm like, there there could be something wrong with them in their brain. It could be a mental health issue. It could be that they have a brain injury or a history of brain injuries, or I just have a lot of compassion. I don't judge, you know.
No, no, I agree with you. I don't judge people either because you just don't know. You know, it's that old thing like you see somebody sitting on a bench crying. Well, you don't know why they're crying. You can assume that they're in pain or something, but maybe they're not. It may be totally unrelated. You just don't know.
Yeah.
How difficult is it to find a provider to treat a traumatic brain injury? I know you mentioned there was a certain doctor. What was it? A physical?
Physical medicine and rehab doctor,
Yeah, I mean,
PMR.
okay, so PMR, honestly, I've never heard of them, and
I didn't either
I'm
before
sure
my head
I'm
injury.
sure that a lot the vast majority listening to this had probably never heard of it. Where do you find these guys? How many of these PMR doctors are out there?
They are out there, and then the profession, the physical medicine rehab doctors, are now.
To all patients and caregivers out there, Rare Patient Voice, a supporter of the It's a Wrap with Rap podcast, is paying for your input. Patients 16 years and older and caregivers, family, and friends of any disability, disorder, syndrome, illness, or condition have the opportunity to express their opinions through surveys and interviews to improve medical products and services. Who knows your journey better than you? Rare Patient Voice puts you in touch with researchers who are developing products and services that can help you and others with your condition. These researchers need input of patients to develop products and services that have a significant impact on patients' lives. Over the past 9 years, Rare Patient Voice has paid patients over $10 million. When you join Rare Patient Voice, you may be invited to participate in interviews, surveys, or online communities where you will share your insights. Rare Patient Voice has hundreds of studies running at any time, so there are many opportunities to participate. You will earn $120 per hour or $2 a minute, depending on the length of the survey, for participating in these studies. By making your voice heard, you are a catalyst for change. Rest assured your input will be used to help other patients like you. There is no cost at all for you to participate. You can get more information and sign up by clicking the link in the sponsor's notes of this podcast or the link provided in this announcement.
Now taking extras, education, and certification to be certified in concussion care and brain injury care. And this is just recently, and it's also exciting news. So it is really hard to find these individuals, but I think that you can look through your provider plan and look for a physical medicine rehab doctor. Now, a lot of people think that they should see a neurologist, and this isn't necessarily true because neurologists take care of patients with brain diseases,
Uh-huh.
such as Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, epilepsy. And physical medicine and rehab doctors, they take care of people with brain and spine injuries. So after a brain injury or a stroke, the PMR doctor's better to see than the neurologist.
Okay. But you would need the surgical neurologist to begin with for the surgery part of it, if you needed surgery, correct?
Oh, if you needed surgery, yes, you would have to see
Neurologist.
the neurosurgeon.
Neurosurgeon. Yeah.
Right. And then they will sometimes have you seen by a neurologist if they put you on prophylactic anti-seizure medications, if they're worried that you will have a seizure due to that bleeding.
Yeah. I know they put me on an epileptic drug for
Is
about
it Keppra?
I think it was. I
Yeah.
know it's Keppra. Yeah, they put me
Yeah.
on that for 10 days just to make sure
Yes.
there wouldn't be a seizure. Would it be safe to say that these PMR doctors are probably located in urban areas?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So people out in the rural areas would have to seek them out and travel. Okay.
Yes.
They're just
Or
not.
try to get a video
Yeah.
appointment. You could always
Telehealth.
you could do telehealth first. And then if they need you to come in, then you could
Okay.
come in.
Okay. So we've learned a lot, you know, because like I said, I've never heard of the PMR doctor, and I was in the medical field to some extent. I was in the pharmaceutical field, but I just never ran across them. Do you feel that TBI patients fall through the cracks of the medical field, such as, loss of jobs, divorce, mood issues, not a lot of guidelines, and what can be done about that?
Well, I don't think that we know that the extent of it, but
Hmm.
there has been some researchers that have, looked into it. And, I've seen in some of my patients that spiral.
Yeah.
So I know it can happen. And I think that personally, as a provider, what I think should be done is that when you have someone who's had a sudden acceleration, deceleration of the body or the head, they should be monitored for a concussion because the brain is not fixed in the skull. It's floating a little bit in
Right.
there.
Right.
So when you have that acceleration, deceleration, it gets slammed against and your skull.
Right.
So I think that anybody who, like we've talked about, has a fall or fell off a bike or got punched or something like that, or something hit, struck them in the body, they should be closely monitored just for a little bit to make sure they're okay. So I like to, on the initial visit, check them out, ask them some questions. I follow up 2 weeks later because I want to know if things are getting worse or better. Because
Yeah.
that's how you catch those bleeds, those slow bleeds.
Do you see a lot of athletes, like football players?
No, no, I
No.
don't. No,
Okay.
I just see your average Joe.
Just the average.
And then, yeah. And then after the 2 weeks, then I would follow up in a month, then every 3 months for the first 6 months, and then 6 months for the first year, and then every year after that, if they have prolonged symptoms and need support.
Yeah. So tell me about the healing process. What is a realistic goal to recovery, and will it ever be 100%?
Well, everyone is different. And it, in the medical community, they say, well, you could get better within a few weeks to 6 months to 2 years. There's within that 2 years, you do see a lot of leaps and bounds in the recovery. After the 2 years, though, the changes are more incremental and subtle, but they do happen. I don't, if I, I think with a significant impact and loss of numerous neurons, you're not gonna see 100% recovery. I mean, if you think about it, if you break your ankle is will heal after 6 to 8 weeks, and then you do some physical therapy and it gets better. But it might feel weaker, like it's easier to respring easier. It might swell every once in a while. It might ache in the winter. Now, to expect a brain, a squishy little organ with tiny, tiny connections and cells,
Yeah.
to heal 100% is really unrealistic.
Yeah.
But with the discovery of neuroplasticity, we know that the brain is willing, if supported, to create new connections. And so you may not be 100% your old self, but you can see improvement. And if you do get left with some deficits, you can support that with tools and compensatory tools and strategies.
So would you say that people going through this process, they have to kind of let go of the old brain and know their new brain, the
Yes.
limitations that are now placed on them?
Yes. So if you are left with deficits and they decide to move in rent free with you
Yeah.
for longer than you planned,
Like your coffee and your toast.
yeah, then there is a grieving process. There's a grieving of the loss of your previous self.
Yeah.
And if you don't, not necessarily, well, if you don't let go, and I don't mean forget, give up, push away, deny.
Are you struggling to start difficult conversations at the workplace, at a social gathering, perhaps just out casually in public, or even in the home setting? Leadership coach and attorney Tucker Miller has drawn from decades of experience helping executives, teams, and families the ability to teach how to communicate with clarity and compassion to others. Her book, titled The First Four Words, will reveal to you how just four thoughtfully chosen words can spark transformative dialogues. Tucker mixes research, real world examples, and actionable phrases tailored to any relationship quandary or communication style. Whether you are an introvert facing a networking event, a manager delivering constructive feedback, or a parent smoothing family tension, the first four words will equip you to initiate discussions with ease. Reading the book, you will learn the common excuses we use to shy away from crucial conversations and how to get out of your own way. Discover the four essential talks leaders must have with their teams, dissect the behaviors that build trust, access four-word prompts to reach consensus amidst conflict. Learn how to offer encouragement, navigate gatherings, respond to grief, and much more. Brimming with empathy, wisdom, and a dash of humor, the first four words makes communication accessible. Tucker Miller stresses that brevity and courage are the keys to understanding. The book will empower you to transform the conversations you avoid into opportunities to solve problems, deepen relationships, and create the life you want. Wherever you are at the moment, you can speak up skillfully by starting simple. The book is not just a book, it is a roadmap for those who understand that the key to success lies in the subtle nuances of conversation. For all those eager to elevate their communication game and make a lasting impact both professionally and personally, prepare to be inspired, enlightened, and equipped with the tools to unlock the true potential of your words. The book, The First Four Words, is available in paperback and Kindle format from Amazon.
I mean, let go, pack it in a bag, and carry it with you because it's still a part of you, that loss, that old person.
Yeah.
But you need to be able to carry it. package and move on to embrace the new person you've become, your new personality, your new way of learning, your new way of seeing the world.
Do you find people accept that pretty much? Or,
I I have seen other traumatic brain survivors really thrive after their brain injury. But I've also seen people who have had traumatic brain injuries that are stuck. They're stuck at that point where they had the loss
yeah,
and they don't move on. They ruminate about the past and I used to be able to do this and this
yeah,
shouldn't have happened to me, that kind of thing. And if you are in that position, you're having a hard time moving on, then I do recommend eliciting a psychologist, a therapist, do talk therapy, psychologist. If you're having issues with mood modulation, depression, anxiety, to speak to either your general practitioner or if it's really tough to help you out, a psychiatrist to help you navigate that transition.
right. Did you acquire new strengths from your recovery to the new you? Did you change? I mean, because you really suffered from it.
I did. So when you talk about letting go of the old and the new,
Yeah,
I for some reason went out one day on my deck. I took my recovery journal and I took a piece of paper, I drew a line down the middle of it. And on the left side, I wrote all the things I used to do and was passionate about and my goals that I had before the car accident. This was about a year after my car accident. And then on the other side, I wrote all the things I gained from the car accident. I was more patient, more empathetic, compassionate. I was living more in the moment and I was more grateful for the things that I had in my life. Whereas the person I was before, I was go, 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 accomplish goal, move on, do another goal, go, 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 busy, busy, busy.
yeah,
And I like the person I am now better.
yeah. I can relate to that. I think I feel the same way. People who haven't, I hope nobody ever has this problem, but any kind of health calamity, you're you're going to change. You're going to realize, we talk about it all the time. Material things do not mean much at all.
Hmm.
You're very just be grateful for what you have and what you can do. Because there's a lot of people that can't even do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have any do's and don'ts for those involved in the caregiving role of a traumatic brain injury patient?
I would say don't argue.
Don't argue with them, huh?
Yes. I often tell my caregivers that if the person you're caring for is ruminating and seems to be escalating their behavior,
Yeah,
to back away, give them space, maybe gently remind them to use whatever they've learned from their therapist, whether it's deep breathing, maybe go to a quiet space, maybe lie down. And then the other thing is not to take what they say personally, because even for myself, I said things that I regretted. And it was more out of not that I wanted to hurt the person, it was more of a reaction from my brain. So I was feeling overwhelmed and overstimulated, and it
hmm,
made me irritable and grumpy, and I would snap.
yeah,
And so I would tell caregivers to not take that behavior personally. And some of the things like my patients will snap at me too. I will say, I'll say, that I don't think you really meant to say that to me. I think that was your brain talking, things like that.
yeah,
Or, it's like, I don't think you meant that. I think your brain made you do that and stuff, or I'll have a patient talking in a loop, in a loop, in a loop, saying the thing over and over. And I'll say, I just wanted to let you know that your brain has told me that 5 times now.
What's
And they're
their
like,
reaction?
oh,
What's
oh,
they start laughing?
oh, yes. Yes. They're like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that because they don't.
Yeah, so just be
And
gentle.
if you, yeah. And if you don't, if you put it on the brain and not you said that to me, you were not nice. You say, I think your brain's being overwhelmed and it has snapped at me, and just wait for it to kind of,
I would
sink
say,
in.
would you say the caregiver should probably go to their appointments? Is
Every appointment.
okay, because they may not
Yes.
remember, or they may hear something.
They or they don't tell their providers what's really going on because they don't know,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
right. Now, what prompted you to write the book after the crash? How to keep your job, stay in school, and live life after a brain injury? I guess you wrote it 5 years after the crash. Can you tell us what the book is about and where it can be obtained?
Well, I wrote the book because before I was to return back to work after being off for 3 months, I was really worried about how I was going to function at work. And I was looking desperately for things that would support my brain's performance. And it was really hard. The information was scattered widely through the internet at the time and in various books. And so I wanted to create a specific brain injury recovery book that only talked about strategies and tools of returning back to work and school. And that's what my book has in it. It has the symptoms to check out to see if you have then it tells you the specialist to see for those symptoms. And then for those symptoms, I have strategies like if you have sound sensitivity, using noise canceling headphones. And then I talk about the 5 pillars of recovery. That's sleep, exercise, nutrition, mindfulness, and finances. Finances can be significantly impacted if you're not able to work or work full time. And if your finances are not in order, it's hard for you to feel healthy and do the right things.
That's for sure. Yeah.
And then the last chapter of my book is about getting back into life. So getting back to driving, going back to work, asking for disability accommodations, utilization of Family Medical Leave Act to protect your job, when to hire a lawyer, and when to talk to financial specialists if necessary.
Well, like I said, I read the book and it was very well written, and anybody who's gone through this TBI journey needs to get it. Where can it be obtained?
You can buy the book off my website at kellytuttle.org, but it's also available in indie bookstores and Amazon. And I also have it on Audible for people who are having a hard time reading, and they can listen to the book instead.
Okay. And how can people contact you? I know you said kellytuttle.org.
Yes, yes.
Is that
You
the
can.
is the only way, or is there another
I'm
contact?
also I have a YouTube channel, which I post content
Oh,
on that educates about brain injuries and how to work and study with
okay.
a brain injury.
What's the YouTube
And
channel?
it is Kelly Tuttle, Brain Loving Advocate.
Okay. Put that in the podcast notes.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram and Blue Sky and LinkedIn too.
Instagram. Okay. What words of advice do you have for people out there regarding head injuries?
Take them seriously.
That's for sure.
Definitely take them seriously.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and like you and I, the symptoms may not evolve until 3 months later.
Yeah.
So you got to pay attention that, as it's not just, oh, for 2 weeks and then they should be okay. You got to continually monitor
Yeah.
to see if things change, if personalities change, if they, become impulsives, like spending money, gambling.
Well, yeah, and that brings me back to that one issue when people have these injuries and they go to the emergency room, and they say, "Well, yeah, it looks good." I I don't know. I mean, they don't say, "Hey, you need to go to your GP. You need to stay in contact with this and check this out every month or so, and then, you know, increase it to every 3 months if you're not having issues in 6 months." And that just doesn't seem to be they're not doing that.
No, it's really terrible because they're just sent home with a list of symptoms to monitor for,
Hmm.
and they're usually just red flag symptoms they don't have like, oh, if you're irritable,
Yeah. Yeah.
when people interrupt you at work, you
Yeah.
see your doctor, you know.
Right. We're falling short on that, and you're doing a good job, with the book and advocating for this. And
Yes.
thank, is
I
there
don't
other,
want anybody to go through what I went
no,
through.
are there other advocacy groups out there for this?
Yeah, so let's see, there's Brain Injury of America website.
Okay.
Uh, they have a lot of information. It's mostly for, I think, military folks, but they have tons of information on their website about symptoms and treatments and,
Okay.
information. And then the CDC website has information on mild traumatic brain injury and symptoms to watch for and monitor.
Okay. Because people need to know this. And, like I said to everybody out there, it doesn't take much to knock your head pretty, hard. It might not even have to be hard. It can still cause problems with your brain. So be on alert for that. And I want to thank you, Kelly, for being on the podcast. It's a subject everyone should be aware of. And this knowledge that you're giving us really could save a life. So thank you for being on. I want to wish you good luck going forward and in your work. And anything comes up, you write a new book or you have, more to say on the subject, we'll have you back.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Ron. I really
Thank
appreciate the chance to talk to your
Oh,
listeners.
thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you. Comments and suggestions for the podcast, you can email me at it's a wrap with rap@gmail.com. You can join our Facebook group. We have a couple thousand members in there. It is a private group. So if you want to join, just email me and we'll let you in. We're on Instagram. It's a Rap with Rap podcast. And that Facebook group is It's a Rap with Rap. And we're on X or Twitter at Rapper, WRAPPER 130. Our website is itsarapwithrap.com. All the episodes are on there. The book nook is on there. And we're on YouTube. It's a Rap with Rap, the podcast uncut. I want to thank everyone for listening or viewing. I want everybody to please stay safe. And for now, it's a wrap. This podcast is being brought to you in part by the veteran-founded Hero Soap Company located in Phoenix, Arizona. In today's environment, we must be aware of the products we apply to our skin. As a two-time cancer survivor, I cannot afford to take chances, and I use these products myself. The soaps will leave you feeling clean and refreshed. All the products made by the Hero Soap Company are made in the United States with the highest quality ingredients, sourced from companies in the United States whenever possible. The products are made in small batches to ensure high quality and contain premium essential oils and fragrance. All Hero soaps are created without synthetic colorants, parabens, and sulfates that are irritating to the eyes, skin, mouth, and lungs, and are cruelty-free, meaning these products are not tested on animals. Each 5-ounce bar of soap is handmade in Phoenix, Arizona, and the body wash is available in 8 ounces with such refreshing scents as lime, bourbon, and frost. You will absolutely love this soap. Please also check out their gear for sale. All the products are reasonably priced. Being veteran founded, the company understands the dedication and sacrifice that each family makes to serve their country. A portion of sales is donated back to charities such as Operation Finally Home, Operation Interdependence, and the Gary Sinise Foundation that are focused on helping veterans and our first responders. Over 1,000 bars have been sent to our deployed troops. Please check out their website, herosoapcompany.com, for pricing and a detailed description of all the products. Now, when ordering, please use the code RAP for a 10% discount. The company information will be listed in the podcast notes.